studs for this. They come in studs, not bolts when purchasing for these flanges. The problem here is that one cannot get a decent bolt in there, so we need to put a stud in the other flange and come in from this side and then put a nut on it. The technique used to get studs into flanges is to double nut, and is take two nuts, put on the stud, and lock them together. I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize on here because it's a heat location. That is moving entirely too easy. Normal studs have a spot in the middle that do not thread, and then they'll stick and it'll stay. Here's the gasket. Now if I did two studs like I'm supposed to, it'd just line up on both sides. It's going to be here. The gasket shifted on me. With bolts, I always want the nut on the downward side. That way, in case the nut falls off, the bolt is still in the hole. Okay, so my bolts are too short. See how the bolt is recessed in the nut? When I tighten this, that bolt needs to be at least flush with the nut. I need a longer bolt. These 40mm bolts are too short. So I went out and bought some 50mm. Alright, let's try this again. Gasket on. The exhaust is up the correct direction. So now I need to torque these bolts, these flange bolts here. These flange bolts are 32 foot-pounds. They're difficult to get to with the standard torque wrench. For a situation like this, I'd use these little dog bones to reach in there and torque them correctly, but I do not have a dog bone for 15mm. So my next method to try is a crow's foot. Now I don't like using crow's foot because they spread open. So crow's foot is not working. It'll get to one of them, but it will not get to the rest of them. I guess I have to guess the 32 foot-pounds. I'm now ready to put the exhaust manifold back on. The Velcro exhaust manifold bolts that I purchased. These are the existing bolts. Take off the spacer and they match. Unfortunately, some of these bolts have studs coming off the end. I'm going to reuse these, and on these flanges, I want to keep them set. I'm not going to mismatch old and new. Either a flange is going to have both old or both new. I'm going to be honest with you, this is kind of awkward. I don't want to go too tight.
Yeah.
And the reason is so I can have some room.
Some wiggle room.
To get those other gaskets in.
But you want even pressure as you put them in.
And this one here, I need to put the old head bolt in because they're threaded. So I'm laying on the motor, trying to reach the back. I believe the problem is the end of the exhaust manifolds have warped inward, and now the bolts back here don't want to go in. Alright, the next step is to torque these exhaust manifold bolts down, and the sequence is, let's see if I can get the camera in the right spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm going to start with 20 and then I'm going to go to 32. Alright, next I'm going to put this back together. An O-ring right there and a clamp. The O-ring goes up inside here. Okay, next I'm going to hook up the exhaust with another clamp right here. Lining up that ring is a lot easier from underneath than it is. And don't be like me, wear safety glasses. Alright, let's put this in. I want to clean out the old oil. Alright, before I put this piece in, I'm going to remove the old gaskets, or should I say the old O-rings. There's one, and then I reach in here for the other one, and there's the other one. Fortunately, they're exactly alike. What would help if I had a stubby 21mm, but I do not. Stubby would be a lot more effective with these. This is the next piece down here. I'm going to put that on from underneath, and as we can see, it rotates. There's the oil return line. Alright, I got the other bolt from the top, basically by Brill, and now the gasket's crooked on the bottom. I gotta shift the gasket back in place. Alright, I lined the gasket up. The flange isn't lined up as close as I'd like. That explains why the gasket keeps rotating out of the way. And I can't seem to get that inside bolt installed. When I watch a video, I want to hear some tips and tricks how to make my life easier when I do it. The oil return line here was difficult to line up this bolt because that flange kept dropping, and every time I went to put the second bolt in, the gasket would rotate on me. We'll back out a little bit and I'll show you where I came in at. The inside bolt, up to the outside bolt. See where the engine mount is? It came up through the engine mount and then to the bolt. Heat shield back on. Trying to get this nut on below here and I'm having problems. I have this specialty tool here which slips right in the nut, holds it so I can just. I was having a little bit of problem until I put this anti-seize on threads of the nut and then it went right on. I like to use stubbies with 3/8 drive, that way I don't accidentally over tighten. Hey, with these welding rod boxes, is open them from the label end, that way we can grab a hold of this end of the welding rod. Do not open them from the back end of the box, because, well, as one can see. I'm going to dry these out. The bracket that I cut, I'm going to weld it. Honestly, the question isn't what tools did I use, it is what specialty tools did I use to do the job. I wish I had one of these in a 17. Oil return off the turbo is leaking. I discovered why the oil return was leaking. I didn't make sure all the old gasket was removed from the flange. Well, I'm not going to go to the store and buy another gasket set. I had this in my toolbox, or I'm going to cut out. I traced it out. When using a hole punch, always go with the grain of the wood. Never go on the side of the grain. This will bounce, or this can sink in. I do not want this hole too small where it will restrict the flow. That's ugly. Nobody's gonna know except me and you.